A lost dog in New York.
Barnaby was not a famous dog. He was a small, golden-brown terrier with one white paw and ears that were slightly too big for his head. He lived with his owner, Sarah, in a quiet apartment near Central Park. Every morning, Sarah and Barnaby followed the same routine. They walked down the stairs, crossed the street, and visited a small cafe on the corner. Sarah always bought a hot coffee, and the barista gave Barnaby a tiny biscuit. Life was safe, predictable, and happy. One sunny afternoon in October, everything changed. Sarah and Barnaby were walking through Central Park. The trees were filled with bright red and orange leaves, and the air was crisp. Suddenly, a bright yellow balloon detached from a child's hand and drifted low across the path. Barnaby barked in surprise, pulled hard on his leash, and slipped right out of his collar. He chased the balloon down the path, through a cluster of bushes and past a busy fountain. When the balloon finally floated high into the sky, Barnaby stopped. He looked around. Sarah was gone. The quiet paths of the park had vanished. Instead, Barnaby found himself on a loud, crowded street surrounded by tall glass skyscrapers. Hundreds of people moved past him like a rushing river. Horns honked, yellow taxis zoomed by, and unfamiliar smells filled the air. Barnaby lowered his tail and felt a sudden wave of panic. He was lost in New York City. He walked slowly down Fifth Avenue, staying close to the buildings. Every person looked like a giant. He sniffed the air, hoping to catch a scent of Sarah's familiar lavender perfume or the coffee from their morning routine, but there were too many overwhelming smells: hot dogs, exhaust fumes, roasting peanuts, and damp concrete. Barnaby sat down on the sidewalk near a subway entrance, feeling small and exhausted. A few passers-by glanced at him, but everyone seemed to be in a hurry. Then a low rumble came from behind a green bench. Barnaby turned and saw a large gray street cat with a torn ear. The gray cat looked at Barnaby's missing collar and shook its head. "You look far from home, little guy," the cat's eyes seemed to say. The gray cat stood up, stretched its long legs, and began walking down a side street. It stopped, turned its head, and meowed softly, as if telling Barnaby to follow. Having no other choice, Barnaby trotted behind. The cat led Barnaby away from the roaring avenues into a quieter neighborhood with brownstone houses and leafy trees. As they turned a corner, a familiar scent hit Barnaby's nose: fresh roasted coffee beans and sweet cinnamon pastries. Barnaby's ears perked up. He ran down the sidewalk, following his nose, until he saw a familiar blue awning. It was the cafe from his morning walks. Sitting on a bench right outside the cafe was Sarah. Her eyes were red, and she was holding Barnaby's leash in her hands, looking desperately at every passing stranger. Barnaby didn't wait. He barked happily and dashed across the pavement. "Barnaby!" Sarah cried out. She dropped the leash and fell to her knees, wrapping her arms around the little dog. Barnaby licked her face, his tail wagging so fast his whole back end wiggled. When Sarah finally stood up, Barnaby turned around to look for the gray cat, but the bench was empty. only a single gray feather-like leaf remained on the ground. Sarah clipped the collar securely back onto Barnaby's neck, smiled through her tears, and said, "Let's go home."
Vocabulary Review. Now that we've finished Barnaby's adventure in New York, let's review 8 useful words and expressions from the story. Repeat after me to practice your pronunciation. First, slip out of. Slip out of means to escape or slide away easily from a grip or a collar. In our story, Barnaby pulled hard on his leash and slipped right out of his collar. Try using it when your shoes are loose or when something slides right off. Number 2, crisp. When we talk about weather, crisp describes air that is cool, fresh, and clear. Number 3, vanished. Vanished means to disappear completely and suddenly. For example, the quiet paths of the park had vanished. When you can't find your keys anywhere, you can say, "My keys have vanished." Number 4, overwhelming. When something is overwhelming, it is too strong, too intense, or too much to handle. Number 5, passerby. A passerby is a person who is walking past a place. Notice the plural form. We say passersby, adding the S to passer. Number 6, trot. To trot means to walk briskly with small, quick steps, just like a happy dog. Number 7, perk up. Perk up means to suddenly become more alert, lively, or interested. And finally, number 8, dash. To dash means to run somewhere very quickly. Great job today! Which of these 8 words was your favorite? Try writing a sentence using one of them in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more English stories. See you next time!